Hello everyone, this is Satyaprakash. Welcome to my channel. This is part 2 of ASP.NET Web API session. In this part 2, we'll discuss what is the GET request with and without parameter in ASP.NET Web API. So before going through this part 2, please visit my part 1 of ASP.NET Web API. That is, what is ASP.NET Web API and what is the routing of ASP.NET Web API, and what are the difference between the routing in ASP.NET Web API and ASP.NET MVC. So you can get this video in my channel, and there is a playlist called ASP.NET Web API tutorial. So in this session we'll discuss what is get method in the values controller and get method with ID parameter in the values controller, and what is the authorized attribute in the values controller. So in my previous video I already have discussed about this code of values controller and web API config.cs for routing. So there are many HTTP verbs for get with ID, overload version of get with ID parameter, post HTTP verb, put HTTP verb, and delete HTTP verb. So in this session we'll discuss only these two HTTP verbs, that is get without parameter and get HTTP verb with ID parameter. So I got this output, that is API. It is nothing but the API with the routing path already have mentioned here, API controller and ID here is the optional, and values is the controller. So this value 1 and value 2 is the output of this get method. Right here you can see in the get method we have only value 1 and value 2. So you can see here, guys. So the name of the controller is values, right? If we use a URI HTTPS, that is localhost, right? And this is the port number, and API it is the controller name. Then the web API is going to look for a controller with name values plus the word is controller in our project. If there is controller named employee, then the controller should be employee controller, right? So if we have specified values in the URI, it is going to look for the values controller. If you specify the employees, then it is going to look for a controller called employees controller. So this is all by the conventions and works this way out of the box. So in real-time world application, this might be the domain name. So instead of localhost : this port number, there should be like this, satyaprakash.com or the google.com or facebook.com, like this API and values in the real-time world. Okay, now the browser is issuing a get request which maps to the get method in the values controller. So the get method in values controller is returning two values, that is value 1 and value 2, right? And which we can see in the browser as well. You can see here, right? This is the getting the response from web API. We have another overload of get method which takes the ID parameter. So guys, here you can see we have one more get method with ID parameter here, and this returns only one value, that is value. So this is the reason we are able to call get method with or without ID parameter. So this is nothing but called the overload of one method, that is get method, right? If the ID parameter is specified in the URI, then the get method with the parameter in values controller is called, right? If you pass any value here, 1, 2, 3 till 1000, we get only the one response, that is value. I'll show you how to do it. So in the URI I put here 1, and I wait for the response. Here you can see instead of value 1 and value 2, we are getting the response, that is the value. If you put here 2, so we are getting the same response, that is value. So if you put 3, and I am getting same response. If you remove this ID parameter and press here, right? It goes to the get method without ID parameter. I am getting response is value 1 and value 2. So if I put here 1000, so I am getting the response from the overload method, that is get method with ID parameter, right? So here guys, you can see here the ID, remember I already have discussed about the default route in the web API config.cs, and here ID parameter is optional, right? So this is the reason we are able to call get method with or without ID parameter. Okay. So guys, here one more point is I need to mention, that is if a controller with the specified name is not found, then we'll get an error. So I'll show you in my project. I have two controller, one is home controller, another one is values controller. So there is no employee controller here, right? So here if I'll put here instead of values employees and press enter, then guys I can see one error, that is no HTTP resource was found that matches the request URI and employees, and no type was found that matches the controller named employees. So that means in my project there is no employee controller class in my project, and then use the URI API slash employees, we get an error like here, right? Okay, so to fix this error we need to create one employee controller here, then the error will be gone. So I'll type here values. So values controller is there, that's why I'm not getting any error. I'm getting the response, that is get method, that is value 1 and value 2, and if I put here ID, and I'm getting the response is value from overloaded method of the get method with ID parameter. So this is the get method, and this is the overloaded version of get method with ID parameter. Okay guys, so one last point I need to mention here, that is what is authorized attribute. So I just stop my debug here, and what I'll do, I'll show you what is the uses of authorized attribute and how to overcome this error if we get any response during creation of authorized attribute. So here what I'll do, I'll authorize attribute, right? And this authorized attribute is present in the namespace called system.web.http. So how to check this, just right click on it and go to definition, or you can put a shortcut is F12, and it will navigate to that definition of authorized attribute. Okay, now guys, here you can see authorized attribute is a class which is inherit from authorization filter attribute. This class is present under namespace called system.web.http. So I am mentioned here this namespace, and I can access this authorized attribute. So I'll run my application, we'll check whether I'll get this response or not. So before that I just build my solution. So you can see build is succeeded, and I'll run my application here. So here I'll go to I'll use the URI in the browser, and I'll go to here API / values. So now I can see one error, that is authorization has been denied for this request. This is the error. It is why it is happened. This is happened due to this authorized attribute, right? So this is related to a security purpose, why we need the authorized attribute. I'll discuss in my next video. So to get rid of this error as of this session, what I'll do, I'll just comment it out, the authorized attribute, or I'll remove the authorized attribute on the values controller. So I close this browser instance, and I will remove that authorized attribute from the values controller, and I'll rerun this application again. So here I remove this one and save these changes, right? And I'll run my application here. So here I will navigate to API/values, and we'll see whether I will get the same error about the authorization or we'll get that response. So guys, here we can see the response from Web API instead of getting that error, because we have commented this authorized attribute from the values controller. So as well, we can see the overloaded version of get method, and we can see the response as well, right? Okay, so that's all about the get method with and without ID parameter, and ID parameter is optional. That's why we are getting the same response by passing the ID parameter, and we can get this value, and from get method we can get this value 1 and value 2 response from Web API. So I'll go to my presentation here. So these two errors is most important that we are facing in the ASP.NET Web API during access of response from API. So one is authorization has been denied for this request. This is due to if you use this authorized attribute and you have not provided any authorized to any specified member or user, then this user can see that while he will use the URI to get the response, that so in that scenario he will get that authorization has been denied. It is due to because the authorized attribute has been used in your project, in your controller file. That's why to get rid of this error, then comment out or remove that authorized attribute. And second one is no HTTP resource was found that matches the request URI. This means if you don't have this controller in your project, that's why you are getting this error. If you use the URI, for example, you have the values controller, then the URI should be API/values. So if you don't have employees controller, then if you put API/employees, then you will get that error, that is no HTTP resource was found. So if solution for that issue is if a controller with the specified name is not found, then you will get this error. For that, you need to create this controller, and you can access the URI from the API/controller name as your requirement. So in this session, what we have discussed today is what is get method and what is the overloaded version of get method with ID parameter, and why we need the authorized attribute. We need because of security reason, and how to get rid of this authorization has been denied issue after using the authorized attribute. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.